Hi, everyone. We're back. We're back. I am super excited about this next panel that we have and about these panelists and this moderator. There are many, many, many moments that I want to talk about with this. First of all, if you were here for our earlier panels, then you heard me talk about this is our original location for the Macro Lodge. And I do consider it hallowed ground. I talk about that a lot. But what makes it so special too is I think about there are people that I met in this room, and two of those people are on this next panel. When I met Elegance and Chester, I feel like it was 7 or 8 years ago. We met right over here. It was a dance. There was something that was happening, but I fell in love with them and have just followed them throughout and just am so, I continue to be just in awe of your talent and your spirit, your beautiful spirit. I do want to introduce our incredible moderator, Roger Ross Williams. Wait. Before you come up, don't come up yet. Don't come up yet. Wait, let me say one thing. You want to talk about excellence? Let's talk about Oscars. I got them. Emmys. I got them. Peabodys. They over there. So I want to know, what do you call someone that has all of those awards? I mean, we know what an EGOT is, but what do we call, the Oscar, the Emmy, the Peabody? We just call it GOAT. We just call it Roger Ross Williams because that's what he does. But I would love to welcome him up right now, just the legend that you are, and I'm so grateful that you're in our space.
Thank you. Embarrassing holding champagne.
Why are you embarrassed holding champagne?
The vibe in here is so amazing. I had to get a glass of champagne. Right. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background because the person who came to me with this project, believe it or not, was Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chelsea Clinton. And I was like, no one would have guessed that Hillary is into house music. And the first person I called was Elegance and Chester. They were the only people who could make this film. And Elegance, as you know, created The Inspection, the incredible film The Inspection, Jeremy Pope and Gabrielle Union, opening night at Toronto Film Festival. I was there. It was emotional, beautiful opening, closing night at the New York Film Festival. Incredible talent. Come to the stage, Elegance and Chester. They also bring the fashion.
This old thing? Whole Foods outfit.
So, Elegance and Chester, let's just start and talk about this film is more than a film just about music. It's beyond music. And just, what is the larger story you're telling here?
Luckily I've had some opportunities to practice this since we got in the mountain. And before we get into it, I just want to thank everybody for being here. My first Sundance, the only place I was allowed into was Macro House. If it wasn't for Macro House, I would have been on the snow freezing. So to come back in this capacity, I've sat here where y'all are sitting and watched so many of my heroes and people I look up to have conversations here. So to be on this side of it is just such a moment for me. And I'm so grateful to Charles and Stacy and hey, lady. And thank you for having me. This project really is all about, at the top line, right, it is the history of house music as told through the experience of Vince Lawrence. But I think a lot about who Vince is, right? And we know, I think a lot of us have a general idea what house music is. It's black, it's queer, it's femme, right? Vince is black, but Vince ain't queer. And he's certainly not femme, right? And I was moved by this idea of what I think the spiritual log line of this film is, which is how queer people and femme people teach us all how to be free, and how house music is a soundtrack to that freedom. So this movie is a celebration. This is a party. And it's really all about understanding that when we gather in spaces like Macro House and we decide to dance with people who are different from us, and we decide to have these moments, right? That is a political decision, and it's hella fun. So that's what it's all about.
We all know house music is a global phenomenon, but it didn't start that way. It started in intimate spaces. Tell us about the origins of house music
Well, so this is a film about history, but it's not the type of documentary that people would expect, and that's on purpose, right? At the end of the day, I don't like to make films that are homework. I believe that history is in us, right? And in the front row, we have living history and Vince Lawrence and DJ Lady D is here, and our incredible editor is here. We are all carrying history within us. So when you ask me the origins of house music, I go back to Disco Demolition in Chicago, Kaminsky Park, 1979. 50,000 white people bought tickets to a stadium and brought disco records, black music, and destroyed them with the intention, right? When it comes down to it, Chicago's a very segregated place, right? So disco at this moment is a moment where black people are doing things and going places that they've never been before. And these white folks decided to blow up these records to remind black Chicagoans not to leave the South Side. You don't belong here, right? They wanted to destroy black dance music. Little did they know that there was a 14-year-old usher named Vince Lawrence who was working to save up money for a synthesizer which would be used to create the first house song. I find that to be incredibly inspirational. And there's a message in that, right? To me, it's like we're living in times where it feels very dark. Every force is organized against us. It's attempting to suffocate us, silence us, push us back 50 years. But what I learned from Vince in this film is that if you hold on to your purpose, there will be light, and that light will draw others.
Vince, I think you need to stand up and take a bow. Chester, fabulous Chester. Talk about some of the key creative decisions in making this film, because there's a very specific creative mission, and talk about that as a producer and how you put that.
I think for us in our process, it was really important for Chicago to be a main character in the film, and so Vince and Lady D and Lori and all these people sharing their stories, they were sharing the history of Chicago essentially, and we had Vince to introduce us to. Basically, we went to Chicago maybe 3 months before production to really dive into the culture of Chicago, meet all the people. Elegance did numerous of pre-interviews, and then he wrote a script.
Yeah, for this, I always say I have cinematic dyslexia, and that I don't see a difference between documentary and fiction film. I see them as two different paths to the same end, which is a movie or a film, depending on your taste. And, I really wanted to, in making this film, there are recreations, because we never get to see young black men collaborate with each other in a wholesome way, right? And when I think about Chicago, I think about films like Chirac. I think about the news stories that I'm hearing. They don't talk about Vince and this generation of house. They don't let us know that this happened. So I wanted to recreate that. So coming off of The Inspection, which was a fiction film, I wanted to bring some of those techniques into this documentary. And so from the playful graphics to the use of recreation, and big shout out to my actor, Malik Shakur. He plays young Vince in the film. And I know there's a lot of filmmakers in the audience, so if you're looking to cast young actors, please cast Malik. He's amazing, very talented. But I wanted to bring some of that method of my fiction films into this film, because I don't want to make a movie that's homework. I want to make a movie that is immediate and visceral and rooted in personal experience, because I believe that there's something really valuable in that. So I'm just excited by it all.
And talk a little bit about how you created this sort of feel of house music in a cinematic form. It's very unique what you did.
Well, we hired a production designer, Tommy Love, and a costume designer, Derica Cole Washington, who did Zola. And we recreated the warehouse, the actual space that all of this started in. And we had all our participants sit down and interview there, but we also shot our recreation shots in the same location in creating the actual space.
I'm like sweating like Whitney Houston up here. It's the champagne. Yeah, again, the hybridization of it all, right? I was really inspired by two movies called Lovers Rock. One of them is by Steve McQueen. The other one is by Menelik Shabazz. One is a fiction film, one is a documentary. But in both, we're looking at how, dub reggae in London in the 1960s is a soundtrack for young black people to form bonds in a hostile environment. And in those films, you see these folks in their middle age remembering what it was like to be young. And it's so charming, it's so engaging. And I wanted to make a movie that was universal. And I think even at this point in my life, as I'm getting older, I miss that freedom of like going out of the door at night and not knowing what's gonna happen, but knowing you got your people by you, right? So only good things can happen. So that sense of nostalgia is really, really important. So when you ask about the cinematic language of it all, those two films are really important.
And it's so, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but it's just so powerful seeing young Vince look at and connect with his older self in a beautiful way.
Well, that's the other thing too. It's like, I think we're at a time in this industry where independent film, they keep telling us we're on life support after this putrid election. We're told that black people are somehow out of vogue, right? And, I wanted to do something that spoke to the enduring power of who we are. We don't necessarily need anybody to tell us that we're great. We are great. It's in us. And all of this is inspired by the folks who were kind enough to give us access to their histories.
So house music, started in marginalized communities and Black, queer, Latin. Tell me how the film reflects those communities.
Yeah, like the film, it's all personal. Like when you brought this project to me, you were like, I've got this thing with Hillary Clinton, and I had to get past the fact that Hillary Clinton liked house music. I knew she liked hot sauce, but I didn't know she liked house music, But house music is the soundtrack of me coming out. I grew up in North Jersey, right outside of New York. I grew up watching all these kind of clips of, American Bandstand in the 70s and Studio 54 and all of these things. And in my house, because my name is Elegance, everyone has always assumed that I'm Black and assumed that I'm gay. So that meant that I had a lot of pressure on me in my family to present in a way that combated the way they chose to name me. I did not name myself. Don't ask me that question. I did not name myself. But all of that to say, when I went to a nightclub for the first time, I went into a space where all the things that were effeminate and kind of looked down upon, things that I was punished for, they became a superpower. And the soundtrack of that power was house music. So that's what made me say yes to this. I wanted to show people how queer people show us all how to be free. And I think it's time that everybody remembers how to be free.
Amen, amen. So we're here at Sundance. This is your first feature film at Sundance. What do you want? Like, what do you want audiences to take away from this? It's going to be, the screening. You can't even get near it. It's so sold out. But it's going to be epic with an epic party after. I know. Jeff's like, don't say that. We want everyone at the party with the best DJs from Chicago. There's no talking at the party. Also, it's going to be just loud music. You come in that party and you dance, and that's it.
It's like
no, don't
Macross.
talk to anyone.
Yeah, what do I want people to walk away with? My goals for this film, we are seeking distribution. I want a theatrical release. I want to turn, being a New Yorker, I miss the nightclub era. I miss being able to go out and just find a space with thousands of people dancing. So to make up for that, I want to turn motion picture houses across this country and world into dance clubs. So I hope that when people come to this screening, that urge to get up and move by the end of the film is too irresistible and the whole theater starts dancing. That's what I want to happen.
And in a bigger context of Hollywood, how do you want this film and the language of this film to, influence Hollywood and how they perceive movies, especially movies about us?
I think one of the most toxic elements of Hollywood is the belief that Black people don't watch documentaries. So that if you're making a documentary about Black people, you're making it for white people only. And I think that's bullshit. I watch documentaries, we all watch documentaries. So I also think that a lot of times documentaries are presented in ways that, I love all sorts of films, right? This is not to take shots at the talking head doc or the academic doc. But what I've learned in my fiction film career is that you want to invite audiences in. I'm not trying to create something that is so high-minded and academic that you need to read a book before you watch my movie. I want anybody. There's this wonderful essay that I read in undergrad by Ralph Ellison called Man at Chehaw Station. For those who don't know, Ralph Ellison wrote Invisible Man, Native Son. People say he's the greatest American novelist of all time. I tend to agree. And before he became a novelist, he was a classical musician studying at Tuskegee Institute. And he had this recital, and he practiced, and he played it perfectly. And his teacher was like, that's not good enough. You assume that your audience is just me. But there's this train station in Tuskegee called Chehaw Station, and at that time, there was a man shoveling coal into that train. And his teacher was like, you don't know. You need to make this for the man at Chehaw Station. You need to make it so that you don't know who's an expert, you don't know who your audience is, but you need to make it so universal that it doesn't just require it being on this campus in order for it to live. And that is a principle that it became a part of my DNA. And if there's anything I can say about Hollywood in the documentary form, just because something is educational doesn't mean it has to be academic. And just because it's academic doesn't mean it can't be for everybody. So that's what I want Hollywood to learn.
Chester, how does your background influence the type of films that you produce?
My background. So I'm a costume designer originally. So I pay a lot of attention to color theory in film. I normally work off the color wheel of love and how people are feeling because of when you see a color emotionally in your head, whether you know it or not, you react to it. So I work closely with Tommy and Derica, and Tommy keeps me in my place, but overly, suggesting things. But anyway, honestly, collaborating with everybody. We believe that everybody, all the head of departments, are directors in their own rights because they're directing their departments, and giving them their space and trusting them. And we also do extensive lookbooks and references and stuff ahead of time to share with them so they know exactly what we want. So my grandmother always say, if you do it once, you don't have to do it twice. So, just do it the first time.
As we know, in the documentary industry right now, it's kind of a crisis, right? They're not buying a lot of films. The streamers have really elevated the prices so high and focused on, true crime and celebrity. What is the message? How do we talk to a potential, if anyone in this audience is a potential buyer of this film, how do we talk to them about why this film?
Honestly, when we were shooting in Chicago, when we first got there was, I think, 300 African-American kids under the age of 18 that left the South Side and went over to I think it's the financial district, near where Trump is, and they just started beating the shit out of every white person they saw on the street, literally. And if you were a black person standing next to them, they beat you up too, or if you defended a white person. So I think kids need inspiration. I think Vince's story and all the story, everyone in the film, they show that you can do it yourself. Like, whether it's being a musician, whether it's being a doctor, a lawyer, we have a pharmacist in the film, Lena Waithe is in the film. You know, whatever it is you want to be, you can actually do it. You know, you just put your mind to it and like really do it. And I think that the film shows that, you know, we need to really build our community and really, you know, help each other and be more of a community, I think.
I think when it comes to buyers, it's twofold, right? We've just come out of a period that was, at least, I don't know. It's hard because like you say like it's new, and I have to remind myself that, okay, Hollywood was woke. When was Hollywood woke? I don't recall this moment of Hollywood being woke. I don't know.
I'm not saying Hollywood was ever woke.
I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are talking about this is like brand new. Like, all of a sudden, like, it's so hard to make a black thing. It's so hard to sell a black thing. It's always been hard. But I think what's different now is that the black audience, like, when I was a kid, and I remember I was very young, very little, when Thriller came out. But when that album came out, I remember being at church and people being like, you better go buy Michael Jackson's album. Because Michael was in the Jackson 5, and he's solo now, and we gotta make sure Michael's okay. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's been lost. We are not showing up for the work that is made for us. We're not watching it enough. We're not spending enough money on it. And these white people do not give a fuck about you. They only care about these dollar bills. They only care about these minutes that you watch. So I'm the type of person, when I see something new, black on Netflix, even if I don't really necessarily F with it, right? I'll put it on in the background and watch it. I'll make sure that shit plays out. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to make sure that there's more opportunities for, who knows? Again, we're not a monolithic force. I don't make the same things that Roger makes. Roger doesn't make the same things that Sam Pollard makes, right? But if we show up for all of ourselves, all of our diversity, all of our difference, now these executives don't have nothing to point to. Now the numbers reflect we are the most influential people in culture in the history of the earth. If we don't show up for each other, we don't exist. Show up for this film. You know what I'm saying? And to the buyers in the audience, this isn't a movie about making white people feel bad. This is a movie about inspiring people to be their best selves. You have a job to do. Other than just buying things that are popular that get views, you are forming society. These Republicans wouldn't be so hot about what's being taught in our schools, what's being broadcast in our theaters, if it wasn't effective. So if you're a buyer and you're asking yourself, what is the value? Like, even on my fictional side, you know this stuff. There are so many black actresses, to me, are fundamental to what cinema is. And then you go into certain audiences and the executives are like, what's her value? The value is forming a culture that is worth living in. That is the value. So for every algorithmic, AI-produced piece of trash that you make that gets 1.2 billion views, you need to be actively seeking a way to elevate the culture so that they're not stupid enough to vote for Donald Trump in the first place.
Oh, preach. Oh, preach. You make such an amazing point, because after George Floyd, they just bought everything the black they can get their hands on. They went to the supermarket and they went to the black aisle and they said, we want it all. And then now they took it all back. They want to give it, they're like returning it. They're returning the black stuff.
Return the sender, go back to Africa.
Yes, but you make such a good point of turning up for ourselves, turning out for ourselves, because if we watch, the 1619 Project, if we watch these
Promote yourself.
Promote my own.
Promote yourself.
Stamp from the beginning. If we watch, if black people turn up on the Netflix and watch this stuff, the numbers go up. All they care about is the algorithms.
That's all they care about. So watch it. Go watch something that's got someone that looks like you in it, and go tell someone else to do it. And if you don't like what you see, go make something, and I'll watch your thing.
Tell us about some of the subjects of the film. We know about Vince, who are going to be here at Sundance. Like give them a shout out.
So Vince Lawrence is here, of course. Lady D, who's sitting here in the front row.
Stand up, Lady D.
Yeah. Marshall Jefferson just landed. He'll be here. Byron Stingley will be here. Lori Branch is here. Oh, all of these people are literally the architects and pioneer of house and have kept the history going all this time, essentially.
And I think there's a lesson in this film in that, you know, one of the things that stressed me out the most making this movie, you know this, is like the idea of creating some sort of definitive thing about a creation of a work of art or a genre. There is no one line that a genre is. It's actually a community. House music is a culture. Vince and his friends went to place these gay clubs. I just think about this. Chicago is a segregated city. If you are a young black man and you want to do something that exists outside of the South Side or the West Side that you were born in, you absolutely require white collaboration to do that, right? And that is something that I think is like, it's so hard for people to wrap their head around what racism is. A lot of times they're like, they want empirical evidence, right? Tell me the thing that happened, when it happened, who did it, how did it happen, give me all the details, and if the numbers add up, it might be racist, right? But what we don't talk about is structural violence and structural racism. Chicago is a town where things are set up in such a way where you cannot aspire to anything better if you do not have a white person walking you through that barrier. That's a problem. You know, so when I look at Vince and his friends, they didn't let that stop them. We're living in a time, like I live in Baltimore. I see a lot of folks who are exhausted by trying to prove their humanity and have given up. I've made a film that shows them that their humanity is all around them. And all they have to do is hold hands with the people that love them, and they can change the world.
It's like church. We are preaching. The editor, Jeremy Stolberg, is here. Just staring up, Jeremy.
Yeah,
Can you give your,
Jeremy.
yes, Jeremy.
Yes.
Jeremy is
Yes.
brilliant, and I've known. How long have I known you, Jeremy? Like 20 years at least.
Since elementary school.
Yeah. yes. Talk a little about the editing process.
So, our editing process lasted for 18 months. We had two editors, actually. We had Jeremy, and then we also had Christian Williams-Bragg, who did Judas and the Black Messiah.
A macro.
Yes. And
amazing film.
Kristen also edited, what was it? Buck, I believe. He edited our short Buck that played Sundance, too. But basically, so Kristen normally does narrative work. So when Jeremy got the cut, it was a vibe, you know? And Jeremy went in and made it more of a vibe. He really, I guess, how do I...
He was like my therapist. He was like my gay therapist. You know, when I started out this edit, it's like, again, the hybridization of it all, it's hard for me to really tell the difference between what's fiction and what is fact. I think that is just a time we live in, right? So, you know, so with Kristen, I was approaching it, okay, I don't want this documentary to feel like a documentary. I want it to feel like a motion picture. I wanted, if you paid $10 in a theater to go see this, I want you to feel like you've had an experience that compares to any other movie that you would see in that theater. That being said, trying to tell a people's history, I had, what did we do, like 30, 40 interviews in total? Mm-hmm. So I had, each one of them is an hour. So I had 40 hours worth of history about how House began. And each one of those people say, I started House, not Vince, not Marshall, not Lady, I started House, right? So trying to sort it out, with Kristen, I ended up having a very bloated cut because I couldn't quite figure out how to marry what I wanted to say with what was true. That's why I think documentaries sometimes are harder than fiction films, because you go into it thinking, oh, I know what this story is. And then you sit down and talk to someone and
you find it in the edit room.
Yeah. Yes, you know.
You write it in the edit room.
But I'm grateful for my editors. I'm grateful for Kristen. I'm grateful for Jeremy, because they just helped me talk it out. And eventually, after many, many conversations, it started to become clear what this story was, right? This is a story about the power of creativity, about the universal power of music to break down barriers of language and race and gender and class. and that is something that proves the potential of all of us getting together, right? The reason why these Republicans won is because we're all fractured. House music teaches us how to be together.
What's amazing about what you accomplished in the edit is that it's told very emotionally. It's not fact. This isn't fact. This happened and then that happened and then that happened. It's like an emotional journey, and the sort of the vibe of it and the feel of it. How did you achieve that?
I listened to Vince, and by listening to Vince, it caused me to change the way that I talk to everybody in Chicago. And mind you, we're talking about a party culture, right? So if you ask someone, what party did you first hear a house song in? They probably won't remember because they were probably drunk or high, or, you know what I'm saying? It's ephemeral. They're not going to remember, right? But what they do remember is how it made them feel. And I think that's the most important thing.
What's amazing when you hope you all come, because when you see this film, when you are in a club and the house music is pumping and you go to another place, it's like you don't even have to be high or drunk or anything. It's like what church was like for me. It is church, and you created that. You captured that in a film. You watch it and you feel what that feeling is like on the dance floor when you are out of body. How did you capture that? Because it is just so beautifully done.
It's in me. It's not on me. I grew up very Christian, very Baptist, and there was a moment as I reached sexual maturity mind you, in the church I grew up in is a church where it's like, we took care of each other. We listened to each other. You may not have a job in the real world. And if you do have a job, it might be something menial, right? But when you go to church, you're an usher, you're a pastor. And then it turned out I was gay. And all of a sudden, I didn't have a place in that church anymore. And then I went to Limelight, and again, Limelight was in a church. It was a church. So, it's in me. When you brought this project to me, the feeling that it brought up is that kind of spiritual togetherness, radical togetherness. This is my church. This club is filled with people who are touched by God in the way that I'm touched by it. And this music is the way that we see each other and feel each other and hear each other. And that is emotional. It's not data. It's not content. It's the soul. Music reaches the soul. And that's what so it's in me. I don't know how. He's like, they asked Basquiat, how'd you paint that? I don't know. I sat in front of the thing and I painted. And this is what came out.
Speaking of Basquiat and being a genius, you made The Inspection just brilliant piece of work, incredible critical acclaim. So after that, you make this film and it's like blows up. Everyone's talking about it. And then how did you decide to do this film next?
I needed a palate cleanser. The Inspection, for those who don't know, I was kicked out of my house when I was 16 for being gay. I spent 10 years homeless. I joined the Marine Corps, where I got given a camera for the first time. I was a combat filmmaker. So The Inspection is a version of that story, right? And it was heavy. My mom died during that production. She got killed by my sister. It was the hardest thing. It continues to be something that I'm working through. And my time in boot camp was violent. Everything that I went through in my household, I had to go through again in boot camp to have a chance at a life. And I had to choose that abuse to have a chance at something better. So by the time the Oscar campaign was exhausting and triggering, and it was great. I met so many people who loved the movie. I met so many people who didn't give two shits about the movie. They just wanted to win an award, and that was exhausting. And when you brought this to me, the mention of the word house brought me joy. It lifted me up, and I wanted a palate cleanser. I wanted to do something that I could take the skills that I had gained in The Inspection, bring it. So my first documentary was Peer Kids, And Peer Kids is a film about 3 homeless queer youth on Christopher Street in the West Village where the gay rights movement started, where I followed them for 5 years as they used that space to build Chosen Family. And I didn't know, when I shot that movie, I didn't know what a jump cut was. I didn't know what a close-up was. I didn't know what a long shot was. I didn't know what an establishing shot was. I didn't know any of that.
The film school.
Huh? No, but I didn't.
I made it in Columbia in undergrad.
I made it in undergrad. I didn't know.
This is pre-film school.
I had an urge to see myself, and I didn't see and I was in college, was an undergrad at Columbia, and I was seeing all these documentaries about people like me that didn't feel like me, and they weren't giving me what I needed. So I decided to buy a camera like I had in the military, and I just went out and started shooting. I didn't know what I was looking for even, and then I shot like 400 hours of footage. And that's why I went to film school, because I'm like, I don't know how to edit this. I need to go to Tisch. And I went to Tisch, you know? And so between that film and then the inspection, now I have this process. I have this way of working, right? So I wanted to apply all of that to something positive, something uplifting, something that would lift me up, take me out of the things that I was feeling that I had to dig up to make that story what it was. And this film was it. It was my light. It was a way for me to like kind of breathe life into myself again and remember that all these horrible things that I had been through taught me the power and the necessity of love and joy and light. If you could focus on the negativity all you want, but if you don't focus on the love that's around you, you'll be miserable. And that's why house music I needed house music.
Film is therapy for you. How does one go from being homeless to going to Tisch? That is like, how do you do that?
Okay, so what happened is that, first of all, I was stationed in Hawaii for 3 years, which was beautiful and amazing. And then I had a master sergeant who was like, a master guns, who was like, listen, you don't need to be, like, it was time for me to leave Hawaii. It was a headquarters battalion, very small amount of Marines. I had a lot of personal space. So I could be gay at night and have a daytime life that was different. And everyone knew my name is Elegance. Even if I had a girlfriend, they would assume I was gay, you know? And my master guns came up to me and he was like, listen, you can't go to the next duty station. You need to go somewhere that's safe. And he offered me a chance to go to New York. But I had to give up being a combat artist to become a military police officer. So my job was to check everybody's ID that came on base. And then, you know, my contract was coming up and I knew I didn't want to re-enlist. And this guy came on base and me and this guy had a lot of tension. I think it might have been sexual tension when I look back on it, but we always kind of would jaw at each other. And one day he showed up with a Columbia University ID. And I was like, how'd you get that? You're too dumb to have this. And he was like, I go to school there. And he proved it to me. I went up to his office, looked at his computer, looked at his homework, made sure it was real. And I'm like, well, if this dumbass can go to Columbia, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I could go to Columbia, you know? Maybe. And then I went to Columbia and I had this incredibly, just this fish out of water experience. Because, you know, I come from a very working class background. My mother worked 50, 60 hours a week for a check that would come every 2 weeks. And I knew exactly where that money was gonna go. And then you go to school like Columbia, and these kids have capital. They don't care about money.
You had a scholarship?
No. I was a veteran.
Military.
So I had free education through the military. So, you know, these kids had all this capital, and then simultaneously I had a assignment in my sociology class where they were like, go out and find real social networks. So I went out to Christopher Street Pier, like I told you, and I shot Pier Kids. Fast forward 2 years, my producer, this wonderful straight white man, Nathan, we're at the end of our Columbia time and it's time to figure out what grad school is. And he's like, I'm gonna apply to Tisch because I'm making this movie about homeless, black, trans people and gay people. They're gonna think I'm the future of diversity. And diversity's hot right now. I didn't know that. Where is diversity? You know what I'm saying? When was diversity hot? So I'm like, well, if you think you could go to Tisch, maybe I could go to Tisch. And I applied, and I interviewed, and I got in. He did not get in.
You're married, right?
For now.
You know, making a movie is there's some tense.
I'm
Well,
talking
no,
about
he's
MAGA.
talking about Trump.
I'm talking
He's
about
talking about the reversal.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I thought.
We're
Okay,
fine.
I was like, what?
You see?
I was like,
You see? It's y'all. It's not us. Y'all are the problem.
yes. They're like, it, it's hard to partner with someone, you know, but to partner with your partner. Tell me how you guys work together.
We have really long debates
About everything.
about everything. No, I guess when Elegance was going to Tish, there wasn't really any producers who wanted to produce his work. So I stepped in and started producing his work because I didn't go to Tish. I didn't go to college at all. So when I started hanging around Tish, I ended up producing 17 shorts for other students. So like Terrence Day, that won the
One Sundance.
Hyphen Ship, a visual poem, that won. I produced that won Sundance 2 years ago. Rashad Fratt's film, his short.
Congrats on
Congratulations, by the way, on Ricky.
Ricky's the bomb. Go
Yes.
watch it.
But I just got to work with so many great people. A.V. Rockwell, just so many people. And Elegance and I, we started producing for other people together. And I think that, like, in working for other people, we learn how to work better with each other. And I think that... honestly, it's really hard working with your partner. Even our agent has multiple couples that they represent, actually, like Christopher Nolan, his wife, you know, on and on. But anyway, I think if you, even most of the people I hire, I have to want to be around you. You know, I hate bad energy. So I think that, like, you know, it's just really important to, like, you know, I feel like our art, film, all of it is like another family, essentially. Like, it's like our chosen family, in a sense. So, you know, we just work it out. I mean, again, we don't always agree. You know, people can see terrible arguments that we have, you know, because we just say what's on our mind. But it's really important to say what's on your mind, I think, when you're in a relationship, because it's like, you know.
I love Chester. And I'll go to the ends of the earth for you. I love you.
I'm wrapping it up here, but I just want to briefly ask you what's next. I know you have a very...
So currently, we go into pre-production in 10 days in Atlanta. We're working on a film called By Any Means, starring Mark Wahlberg.
The film is about, set in the 1960s. This black man by the name of Vernon Damer was paying the poll taxes so that black people could vote in Hattiesburg. And the Klan found out. They burned down his house. He died. And our FBI hired a mafia hitman by the name of Greg Scarpa to bring in the killer, dead or alive. Our film was about the black agent that's partnered with that hitman and all of the complications that occur when a criminal who's white is able to enforce the law better than an FBI agent who's black. Imagine Training Day meets Goodfellas with Mississippi Burning thrown into a blender. That's the movie.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Before we close it down, I have two things. One is we have a clip of Move Your Body. So, I mean, this conversation, we need a part 3 and a part 8. But I would love for us to toss to the screen so that we can see the clip.
You could hear it for blocks outside the venue. so excited. They had the biggest, most powerful bomb-ass sound system. 7-foot-tall bass speakers. Frankie Knuckles was DJing opening night, who was the famous DJ who's not gonna go to this party.
These songs that were just like our songs. These were black, gay songs. You know, house music had a definite queer edge to it.
That kind of freedom. You can just totally let everything go, right? And people are afraid of that freedom.
I think Black queer joy causes backlash because society has told us that we are supposed to be straight. It's a form of resentment because we said no to what society told us to be.
And so Black bodies' emotions are never without consequence. We were living inside a racist construct. We were 5 or 10 years just past, I can't share the same restroom with you. Chicago is a case study.
There was as much gunfire on the corner of Wood and Lake last night as a Vietnam battlefield.
We've been fighting for our fair share of this whole American pie. Excluded, marginalized, or outright ostracized. You can sit and take it, or you can dance. We just danced all night, and we made music, and that music changed everything.
Move your body, move your body, move your body, move your body.
All right, that was amazing. Y'all, when can we see the film? When is it playing here?
The film plays on tomorrow, actually. We premiere at 10 p.m.
Okay, 10 p.m.
And there
Y'all
is a
heard
rave
it?
party.
At the Ray Theater. The Ray Theater.
At the Ray. Y'all heard it. Y'all heard it. You are a treasure. Thank you so much for what you've brought to this space, what you've given us, and what we're all going to take away. Y'all, please give it up
you for having us.
Roger,
Thank you.
for Elegance, for Chester.